Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to talk about the spell Simulacrum. This spell got a pretty big nerf in the 2024 version. We have the legacy version up here right now. We are going to be looking at this compared to the 2024 version. Things that you can do with this spell in D&D 2024. We will also be looking at the first, second, and third edition, or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons second and third edition versions of this spell, and comparing and contrasting, seeing what carried over and what didn't. So, all that and more, so stay tuned. All right, before we get going, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. So, this is the 7th level version of this spell. It is a 7th level spell. It took 12 hours to cast. It is usable by wizards, although bards can get this spell as well through their magical secrets. And essentially, you created an illusory duplicate of yourself, well, a beast or a humanoid, that is within range for the entire casting of the spell, which lasts until it's dispelled. So the duplicate is a creature. It is partially real. It is formed from ice and snow. The spell does have a pretty hefty component, which is going to be powdered ruby worth 1,500 gold, plus, all the other stuff. So it appears to be the same as the original, but it has half the hit points. So if you have 100, it has 50, and is formed without any equipment. So it's not going to have any of your stuff. Otherwise, all the same stats, including your spells that you had after you cast this spell. It's friendly, it obeys, it moves and acts in accordance with your wishes on your turn, and it lacks the ability to learn or become more powerful, so it doesn't get experience points, and it never increases in level or abilities, and it cannot regain expended spell slots. So that was a thing that they said in this one. And then if you wanted to repair it, you could do so using rare herbs and minerals worth 100 gold per hit point to regain. If you cast this spell again, any duplicate you create with this spell is instantly destroyed. Okay, so we, back in the day, gave this spell an S because you could duplicate yourself, and the shtick was that you could not cast this spell again, but the duplicate could cast this spell. So you cast it, a simulacrum appeared. If you were 17th level or higher, you also had a wish spell, which the simulacrum also had. The next day, you would take a rest, and then wake up the next day after your long rest with all of your spell slots. You would use the wish spell to cast simulacrum again, and then your simulacrum would cast simulacrum on you, creating a new simulacrum, and the original simulacrum could cast a wish to simulacrum one of you, and then you again, and then the old simulacrum could cast a wish as well, and then so on and so forth. You could just keep resting, and you could get a bunch. You can't get an infinite number of these because it does take 12 hours to cast this. But out of combat, like on downtime, you could, over a period of a week or a couple of weeks, you could have a bunch of simulacrums. Pretty much all of them are going to be missing either the simulacrum spell or they're going to be missing wish, but they're going to have everything else. But you do have to be very high level to do that. Now, let's take a look at the 2024 version, and it is essentially the same, except a big one that is here is that it cannot cast this spell, which doesn't necessarily need to cast this spell. It can cast Wish, which is not casting this spell, but can duplicate it, and we're going to look at that. So everything else is essentially the same, and it does add a portion in here where it says if it takes damage, the only way to restore its hit points is to repair it as you take a long rest. But then it also says that it obeys your commands. The Simulacrum cannot gain levels, and it cannot take short or long rests. So previously, this one said that it cannot regain expended slots, but this one now says that it cannot take short or long rests. So it can't gain the benefits of a short or long rest. Whereas if you had a Simulacrum of a wizard that took a short rest, you know, they have some abilities that say they can gain some slots, but it can't gain slots. So I think they just wanted to say that it couldn't gain slots in a different way. Essentially, it's the same spell, except it cannot cast Simulacrum. So let's take a look at Wish. So the basic use of this spell is to duplicate, not cast another spell, but to duplicate any other spell of level 8 or lower. If you use it this way, you do not need to meet any requirements of that spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect. So you are not technically casting Simulacrum. The Wish is duplicating the effects of a Simulacrum. Now, you're still pretty high level, so again, you're going to cast Simulacrum on yourself. Your Simulacrum is going to appear without the Simulacrum spell. Then you're going to take a rest. You're going to get all your spell slots back. And then you're going to have your Simulacrum cast Wish on you to make a Simulacrum. And then you are going to cast, you could cast Wish as well on yourself. Or you could cast Simulacrum. Well, you can't cast Simulacrum on yourself because you already did it. So you can't repeat that one. But you could cast... You could infinitely go through that and keep doing rests. It's just going to take longer than it would originally because now your Simulacrums can't cast Simulacrum. So if your Simulacrum casts Wish on you, creating another Simulacrum, that Simulacrum is going to have all your spells except for Simulacrum, but it will have Wish. So you can still do this with Wish, you just can't get it through the Simulacrum. And that seems like a big loop. Very complicated. Now, the other way that you can actually cast this spell is through a magic scroll. And the scroll bears the words of a single spell. If the spell is on your spell list, you can read the scroll and cast its spell without material components. So it doesn't take up a slot, it's just there, and you cast it without that 1,500 gold, but it still takes 12 hours to cast. Now, a 7th level scroll is a very rare item, and if we go over to treasure, very rare items cost approximately 40,000, so half the value for consumables, so approximately 20,000. This table is in the new Dungeon Master's Guide, so it's about 20,000 to create a scroll. In the player's handbook, here are the rules to create a scroll. You need to be proficient in Arcana and calligraphy supplies. And then a 7th level spell is going to take 50 days and 12,500 gold pieces plus the material component of 1,500. So it'll be 14,000 gold pieces to create this scroll. But again, a scroll, you can take a scroll of Simulacrum or any spell, and you can hand it over to your Simulacrum. Now, the Simulacrum cannot cast Simulacrum anymore, so you can have maybe somebody else cast it, but you can still make that scroll. You yourself could use the scroll, and then you're not using your slot. So, and that's just another way to kind of get around this. But again, they did nerf this spell quite a bit by taking away that ability right here to not cast this spell. So Simulacrums cannot cast Simulacrum, but they can still cast Wish. All right, but you still have to be pretty high level. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was we're going to go over the first, second, and third editions of these spells. So let me move myself out of the way here. You're going to see my stuff over here. And so here it is, 7th level spell. By means of the spell, the magic user is able to create a duplicate of any creature. The duplicate appears exactly the same as the real. There are differences. They will have 51 to 60% of the hit points. So that carried over into 4th edition. There will be areas of knowledge which the duplicate does not have, and a detect magic will instantly reveal a simulacrum, as will a true seeing. And as far as at all times, let's move us back here. And let's get rid of this. At all times, the simulacrum remains under the absolute command of the magic user who created, although a special telepathic link exists. The spell creates the form of the creature, but it is only a zombie-like creature. A reincarnation spell must be used to give the duplicate a vital force. The duplicate creature is formed from ice. The spell is cast over the rough form. Additionally, the spell requires powder clay. So it goes through that. It has no ability to become more powerful, and it cannot increase its levels or abilities. So essentially, the simulacrum here, if we look here, there will be personality differences. There will be areas of knowledge which the duplicate does not have, but it's the same. The duplicate appears exactly the same. So it was kind of questionable whether the creature could use spells. So it's under command, but it's a duplicate. Now let's move over to 2nd edition. And here is the creature in 2nd edition. Here it is here. So again, half hit points or a little bit more. It's zombie-like. There are personality differences. There are areas of knowledge that the duplicate does not have. It can be detected. There's a telepathic link, reincarnation. The level of the simulacrum, if any, is from 20 to 50% of the original creature. So that is a thing. So it could cast. So they did define it here as being able to cast spells because it is like half level. And then the 3rd edition version of this spell over here, 7th level spell still 12 hours. So that's where that's coming from. And it creates an illusory duplicate. The duplicate creature is partially real and formed from ice or snow. It appears to be the same as the original, but it has only half of the real creature's level or hit dice, and the appropriate hit points, feats, skill ranks, and special abilities of the creature of that level or hit dice. You can't create a simulacrum of a creature whose hit dice or levels exceed twice your level. You must make a disguise check when you cast the spell to determine how good its likeness is. And a creature that is familiar with the original might detect the ruse. At all times, it's under your control. No special telepathic link exists, so commands must be exercised some other way. So that they took that away. And then it has no ability to become more powerful. It cannot increase in level. Abilities, if reduced to 0, then otherwise it reverts to snow, and a complex process is required to heal at 100 gold pieces per hit point. So that carried over from 3rd edition into 4th edition, and then they talk about the material component. So, and then there was an XP cost, 100 XP per hit die of the simulacrum to be created. So you actually had to sacrifice like some of your soul force to have this thing be created. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't like this one here, where this one is a duplicate of you with all that can do everything you can do except for that you had at the time. So that is a big change that they made. I can see why they did add this little part in here because of that loop, and they wanted to make sure that you couldn't do this over and over and over again very easily. You can still do it, in my opinion, with the wish spell over and over and over again, but you can't do it as easily. All right, that is what I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody